dog never shuts our mouth. Alright, anyway, we are over here though. This is kind of the back of town area. You go that way, you're going to find the French Quarter of the Mississippi River where the city was founded. As the city grew, we mostly stay at the riverfront. This is our high ground here in the world. Most places you go, the river is the lowest point in the area. However, because we're at the bottom of the Mississippi River Delta, we've built up all this land over the last couple thousand years, which still, 1,000 years sounds like a long time. This is still some of the youngest land in the entire world. Now, as you go away from the river, you get lower and lower in elevation. The natural levee just turns into swamp. So this area is kind of that middle ground. The French Quarter sits about 10 feet above sea level. The middle of the city about 10 feet below sea level. Right here, we're probably about a foot or two above sea level. Now, this leads to this area not being flooded during Hurricane Katrina. In fact, this area stayed mostly dry. It was known as the Iberville Housing Projects, basically meaning it was not the nicest neighborhood back in those days. Now, after Katrina, they basically came and bulldozed most of the projects, turning it into a mixed-income housing development, basically just turning it into a little bit nicer of a neighborhood today. Now, there's a lot of political details around all that, you know, stuff that goes along that some people support, some people don't. For us, it really just serves as a nice low-traffic area for us as we make our way towards the French Quarter. It's kind of like a nice little warm-up area, focused on getting comfortable here as we make our way towards the French Quarter. So, following this way. here. This was the widest street in the world. It was first built at 171 feet, one side to the other. It is home to one of the world's oldest streetcar systems. The green streetcars that ride through St. Charles, on St. Charles Avenue through the Garden District are the oldest ones in the entire world, still in operation today. They are $1.25 to ride once, $3 for a 24-hour pass. Pretty easy way to get around town, except for the fact they don't run on time whatsoever. You're gonna hop on a streetcar, you make sure you're not on the run. But we get there very quickly. They're pretty easy to get around town. I mostly recommend taking the St. Charles streetcar line just because it takes you to a really beautiful part of town. Or if you're driving, just take that drive up St. Charles just on your way out of town or any point in time. It's a really nice way to see everything. And let go the month. Yeah, no, it takes a little bit seeing Spanish architecture. You think it'd be French, but it's actually Spanish. This French Quarter burned down twice under Spanish rule. Turns out the Spanish style building with brick and stucco is much less flammable. 100-year-old cypress wood. They built everything most before. Then we're going to take a left down Burgundy Street. We're going to pick up a little speed here. If you Segway start to push back on you, if you do, that's a speed cover. Slow down your Segway will level itself back out. This street is spelled Burgundy, pronounced Burgundy. For no reason whatsoever. This is how we do things here in the world. Now, maybe one time you feel like you're leaning back, but nothing's happening. When in doubt, stick your butt out. All right, that's the easiest way to get the Segway to come to a stop. Think of that as your emergency brake. And lastly, anytime we come to these stops, y'all make sure you get your heels moving, get those feet moving. You'd be surprised how tired your feet will get from just standing there on the Segway. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our left up here, so follow me. It is the world-famous Bourbon Street. It is filthy, disgusting, full of debauchery and sin. That is why we love it here in New Orleans. That's why it exists. And you always got to go down the street at least once in your life. It's best when you're of age, so I highly recommend waiting until you're in college, guys. But regardless, when you do come down the street, I highly recommend you don't wear open-toed shoes. Don't wear your favorite pair of shoes. Look, God, don't step in a puddle on where God only knows what could be in that puddle. But it wasn't always the party mecca of the United States. In fact, our majority of New Orleans history, it was a middle-class neighborhood. It wasn't until the 1950s when you had a couple bars in this street come up with one of the greatest concepts, in my opinion, known to man, the go-kart. You can take your drink, walk out of the bar, and walk down the street with it, which you'll realize you can't do most other places in the country. I still have to catch myself when I go to a new city and I go to walk down the street with a beer in my hand, or if I go to walk to a house or bar with my drink, the door guy's gonna stop me and look at me like an idiot, and I gotta be like, sorry man, I'm from New Orleans. Of course it happens. But it sounds like we got Darth Vader right over here around the corner, so make sure you guys wait as we pass by here. Cross over. If you're wondering what Darth Vader is, you're gonna find out. there, Juan. And let's get off, man. Let's get you right here, Susie. Come up here. And then Dylan over here. Side for me. Nate, get you right here. And Eric right here next to Nate. Follow me this way. Y'all grab your waters, get those feet moving. That summer heat is no joke today. Y'all make sure you guys are staying hydrated even after y'all leave our tour. But this is Jackson Square. This is the epicenter of the French Quarter. I'm here to give a day to find artists selling their art, psychics selling fortunes, magicians doing magic. It'll pick up more as the weekend approaches. Friday and Saturday are going to be absolutely crazy over here. But over here we have the St. Louis Cathedral, the longest running Catholic cathedral in the United States. It is actually a basilica now. The Pope came here way back in the 1980s and turned it into a basilica, which is basically a super cathedral, but we don't like change here in New Orleans, so we just call it the cathedral still. Next year we have the Louisiana State Museum Cabildo. This is where the Louisiana Purchase was signed in 1803. They have their state museum, and it's only about $7 or $8 to get into. And it's absolutely beautiful on the inside. You can see the room where they signed the purchase. But also on the other side of the cathedral is the presbytery, which is pretty much the original jail and courthouse here in New Orleans. Originally had the city hall, the church, and the jail all right here in the center of town. Now on both sides of the square, we have these big red apartment buildings. Those are the tall boat apartment buildings. The most iconic, inexpensive, and oldest real estate here in the French Quarter. Been here since the 1840s. They're originally built by a young baroness who was basically an architect without the formal training. Baroness was not your typical lady in those days. She, back in those times, most women did not have any rights. They were expected to stay home, be serving to their husbands. This baroness wore long pants. She cursed. She spit. She was very independent in these times. This, of course, around the time of the early 1800s, where Andrew Jackson come to town to fight the Battle of New Orleans. Not only Jackson, but most of the men around town would refuse to respect the baroness, especially in tipping their hats to her like you would have tipped a lady in those days. If you didn't tip your hat to a lady back then, you might as well have called her some kind of horrible insult that you could equate to whatever you can imagine today. Now, Jackson would, of course, take it a step further. Not only would he not tip his hat to her, but he'd often berate her and get onto her, and she would, of course, give it right back to him. They were known to have these arguments here in the center of town. Now, of course, Jackson would go on to win the Battle of New Orleans, be a hero. And Baroness would marry her first cousin, because that's what rich people did back in those days. And, of course, they would go live on the father-in-law's compound outside of Paris, where the father-in-law spends the next 10 years trying to basically swindle the Baroness's fortune out from under her. He tries to get her to sign it over to the husband, tries to get it signed over to him directly, does whatever he can to kind of get the money out of her. He eventually has enough. He decides he's going to shoot her 4 times and shoots he would get overcome with guilt, blow his brains out that night, but she would survive. She would lose a breast, she would lose a couple fingers, but at the end of the day, she would be able to make it back here to the United States, where she would spend 2 weeks at the White House with Jackson, and then making her way here to the city of New Orleans, where she would finish her main projects here in the center of town. Now, as she's finishing her pride and joy buildings here, City Hall approaches her, asks her to build or commission a statue and a memorial to the great hero for the Battle of New Orleans. She decides to get Jackson Square built on top of the Plaza d'Armes, and of course tops it all off, putting Jackson on a rearing horse, tipping his hat directly to her personal balcony for all of eternity. As you can imagine, we found out their ridings had an affair behind closed doors. So it's typical New Orleans shenanigans going on. Now, across the way here on the left corner, we're going to point it out as we make our way back to the Segway. But on the far end of Jackson Square here, we have a great restaurant known as Muriel's. Muriel's makes some of the best Louisiana Creole food here in the city, but it's also one of the most haunted restaurants here in the city, haunted by a former owner who got himself into some gambling debt, decided he's going to end it all, hanged himself on the 2nd floor. To this day, there are rumors of the former owner they talk about in the restaurant at night. They actually still set up a plate and silverware for him. They actually light some candles. They even pour the man a glass of wine for an extra $50 under your bill. You can sit and eat. Gullible enough. I'm not going to fall for it, but somebody will. Definitely recommend eating there, though. The food is fantastic at Muriel's. It's definitely worth the dinner. Just don't get suckered into paying that extra $50. Just ask your waiter for a ghost story. It's a lot cheaper. But any questions or anything before we continue on? Cool. Let's make our way back to the Segways, y'all. And like I said, Muriel's is that far left corner restaurant down there.